I'm Alexandra or Alex Morgan,
Yes.
and I teach between two studios, I guess is the easiest way to put it in terms of business. I'm an instructor trainer, a Stop Pilates instructor trainer for Marathon up at
Mhm.
Yonge and Eglinton in Toronto at head office. But then I also teach, I never know where to look for these things. I'm sorry. So if I'm like
I
doing
know,
one of
right?
these,
My
I'm
eyes
sorry. I
glance
still
all
haven't
day
figured it
long. Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. But I also teach clients and hopefully make better eye contact at Studio 3 Power Pilates or Studio Power 3. I never say it properly, but it's I should know by now, but it's a little boutique studio, so a very different environment that I
Mhm.
I love the variety with, but right at
Very cool.
Summerhill Station. So I run up and down Yonge Street, sort of in that area a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. Can you talk about, there's so many studios, little boutique studios in Toronto that you like may not even have a digital presence, right? But they're there and they're just doing their thing and they're serving their community in a real small, intimate way. That doesn't happen in Mississauga. Like I'm thinking about that for
Oh.
Mississauga, but it's interesting that you don't have these little corner store-esque Pilates studios like Toronto does.
So I've got an instructor for you shouldn't talk to who is in Mississauga, but it's a home studio. I think I know a
Okay,
couple home studio people in like
right.
that end of town.
Yeah,
But no, you're right. I can't think of any other boutique studios in Mississauga that come to mind.
right.
But in Toronto, it's funny, the longer I teach here, and so I did my initial certification, I think 2013, speaking of a million years ago, I think 2013. um, and then I did my instructor trainer course about 2018, I want to say, so definitely pre-pandemic times.
Yes.
But I think it was, you know what, around the time I really started teaching courses for Marathon that I realized how many boutique studios there are because we teach an incredible collection of international clients. We're so lucky I get to meet. I don't know, I don't think people, oh, there's Stella. Stella just joined. She's one of I did my co-teaching. She was my
Oh, cool.
very first course I ever taught. Hi, Stella.
Oh,
So she's
nice.
North Toronto. Sorry, that was
Yeah,
just saw that. But
yeah.
we teach so many international people going home and back to their home turf. But it was a great way to meet and find out about people teaching either out of their homes in Toronto or out of these boutique studios I'd never heard of. And there's
Right.
so many. And I hope they're still kicking. I mean, it's been a brutal time
It
for
has been.
studios, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like I'm just starting to learn more of them, and it's so funny. Like on a global stage here, we talk. Both of us are in. I'm in Mississauga. You're in Toronto, and then there's people who are in like Georgia and Chicago and all these different places. Pebble Pilates is in Sweden, I believe, right? So obviously like we're like 25 minute drive apart, but it's such a
Yeah.
different world, the suburbs to the downtown core. And
Hey,
for
Pippa.
you,
Sorry,
yes,
Pippa's
yeah,
in Switzerland. So Pippa,
there
who
you
just joined, is
go.
Switzerland. There you go.
Right, exactly. So, and all
Sorry.
these different spots. So, like, the culture of Pilates in Toronto, and when Martin Phil's on here, we speak to it too, because he's at Hart House, University of Toronto. It's so different, right? Because you have these small studios, and they're like spin studios, and they have Pilates, or they're like just on the second floor of some storefront, and just doing their thing, and beach Pilates, right? Like they have all these different spots that are bigger
Yeah,
or smaller.
yeah.
Whereas here in Mississauga, it may be someone who has a reformer in their basement or and just teaches a couple people and that sort of thing. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. If anyone on here is in Toronto, 'cause I'm same thing. I'm constantly discovering new people and new studios in Toronto. Please like write it down. I'll read afterwards and go and
Yes,
find you.
right.
Because I think that is the one thing I will say about online in the pandemic too, is it's been a really cool way to take classes with different people, I have to say.
Absolutely.
Having the time, but this different form of accessibility. I've
Hmm.
as an instructor, there's nothing I love more, and that's been so
Absolutely.
fun, so fun. I have yet to do one with you. I'm sorry, you're on my
Yeah. Oh,
list.
yeah. Let's. Likewise. Since we did our demo, I've been like trying to like. That was like 2017 or something.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
so glad I found that. I was almost like, should I send this? Does this look super creepy? But I kept, I think, a few shots from each of the can fits, and I'm so
Mhm.
glad I had it.
So funny.
So
Yeah,
funny.
and Meryl Pilates in Germany. Like I took a online class with her and Joel Crosby. Like she was on the show, and we with the class with her. So fun, right? Like you learn so many
Oh,
different, like she's been teaching for a while and she's had some great mentors over the years as well. And all of these things tie into our Pilates style,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I'm moving towards, and my wife walked in today as I was watching this Bruce Lee documentary, and
Okay.
I'm going to get into this whole thing about style in a second. But the conversation has shifted from classical and contemporary, obviously, and like that chasm has been closed in different ways, and everyone kind of just does their own thing and celebrating movement is all good. Now we have our own methods, our own styles, our own
Yeah.
approaches that are so fluid because we're learning from so many different bodies because it's so accessible now that I think that that is really impacting the way that we look at Pilates and we're not so set in just this routine, right?
Yeah, I think
So,
so. I
yeah.
think so. 'Cause remind me, I'm sorry, where did you start with Pilates? Was it, I mean, the classic question is classical or
Classical.
was it temporary? Because I know you teach and all that beautiful equipment behind you. Did you start working classically as well when you first came to your practice?
Well, that's a good question because I did my very first, and you'll probably the only person who will appreciate this. I did my very first Pilates course at East to West.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. So one person who'd know exactly where that is. So I did, and that's like a yoga Pilates place. I did a mat
Yeah.
Pilates class with her, Sue
Okay.
Dias.
Okay.
I just remembered her name right now. And I remember taking that class, and the way she teaches, because she's a dancer, is very like dance, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I thought,
She's
okay,
got the snaps.
yeah, she got the snaps and all that stuff, right? And I, because of my sport background, I realized that Pilates was really good for my body. So I took it not with the intention of teaching it, but just learning it to understand it for my body. I took her class and learned a lot, but then realized that I'm never going to be a Pilates teacher because I can't sing and dance like that,
And
right? So
hearing
then,
that makes me so unhappy and I'm so glad I think that mentality has shifted a little. And I think
yeah,
Instagram, oddly enough, and other places have really helped with that visual component of seeing people who I look like that. Oh, not only can I
right.
do it, maybe I can teach it.
Maybe I can teach it. Exactly, right? So I felt
Yeah.
like that, in retrospect, that's why I put up like Real Men Do Pilates and stuff. I wanted to topple that mindset that is just for women and dancers to do Pilates. Like there's a guy that doesn't have a dance background, that looks like an average guy, whatever. That's not like there's something to
Average,
that. That
what was that body percentage there, Martin?
uh,
Average guy? What were you
but I
throwing out earlier?
it's interesting, eh? Like I
Yes,
mean,
yes,
yeah. So like I can't
yeah.
put my foot behind my ear, so I'm an average guy. Okay, like that's the reference for me. Like that's like I don't have that flexibility. So it's so funny.
Fair,
That's so yeah.
fair, fair.
Eh, So in that, like just seeing her do it, like I mean, it was great. I did once again. She's a great teacher, but I'm just like I can't sing and dance through a class, so maybe this isn't for me. I'll just do it for my own body. And then when I was working at Lifetime, another reference you recognize in Toronto, with Mississauga, I did my peak Pilates and I had a chance to go through my
Okay.
comprehensive, right? So um, Pam Garcia, who I'm still yet to have on the show, is the person who taught us, and she's
Yep.
fantastic. And Claire Dunphy, Hermes
Nice.
Dunphy, yeah. So she
Yep.
she's been on too, and she wrote the
Good.
curriculum for that, and just such a rich heritage. So just understanding after doing those two classes, I did Lily Viola's studio in Toronto.
I think,
She was like,
sorry, I was gonna say
sorry, go ahead.
funny. That's where I think I picked up. I remember seeing the two of you come together on Instagram, like both of you were posting in the courses. And
Yes,
so I remember
right,
seeing you when you were going through that process and those beautiful blue, it's her blue equipment, right? That always
right,
catches my
yeah,
eye. Oh, sorry,
right.
interrupting
Yeah,
again,
it
but
is beautiful. It's all good. It's all good. But she had Chris Robinson coming in, so she's like, Chris Robinson is going to be teaching this course. He's a guy, he's a black male, he's an
yeah.
athlete, he's all these different things, so that you will really resonate and benefit from learning from him. So I took that course. So I did my apprenticeship with him. That 600-hour course took me like 800 hours because I failed the second one because I was just like, there's this unlearning process as well as a learning process, and then layering in 15 years of teaching personal training and sport conditioning, like all that stuff really collided in there. So It took me a while. There's times like my wife had to talk me off the ledge so many times because it was hard, and I was like, "Well, what's the point of this? I'm not going to make any more
Yeah.
money than I'm making right now," and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I have to credit her for helping me to get through it because I figured not that I knew everything already, but I wasn't really convinced that I was going to benefit as
Hmm.
much as I have from it. And so it's been a really rich, experience. And yes, it is a classical base. And I like the fact that I understand the classical because now I can speak that language of classical plays. I could walk into a studio in Sweden and go through the classical repertoire with someone and they would understand the same as someone in New York City, as someone in New Zealand. And then from there we could layer in our understanding and teach to the body in front of us and make it a positive experience for that person, right? So
Yeah. But
that's
come
the
back to
value.
that
Yes.
universal language. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just saw the question go by, sorry, while I was listening to that wonderfully put answer. And I think this is a question that I get asked all the time, and I still struggle with an answer to.
Hmm.
If Joseph were to see, sorry, I feel like I'm taking over reading
Go
your
for it.
comments. And if
I love
Joseph
it.
were to see Pilates today, would he be in awe of the progression or in disgust that his pure art and his original contrology has been, and it's been watered down? What's your
Okay.
answer to that? What do you typically do you mind getting into that? Because I think it's something that comes up all the time. And it's maybe
Yes.
not something
Well,
you get to discuss classical to
yes.
contemporary instructor all the
Right.
time in a
Absolutely.
friendly way. Sometimes,
Yes. So I know it.
right? Like,
Here's the rules of engagement. We will remain friends after this
are
conversation.
you still on your coffee? Cheers.
I
Cheers to
am,
that.
yes, cheers to that.
Nice mug.
And so that's please in the comment section, like Joel's here,
Please.
Meryl's here. I'd love to hear everyone's response to that question. And that's like, who knows the answer to that? It's who really knows because he was always innovating. It was not static when he was teaching.
Yeah. And considered, from what I understand, because I mean, I haven't immersed myself in the classical repertoire, obviously, like someone like you have, all those hours. But, I, especially as an instructor trainer, I did try to, do my homework. Where did what I teach come from? And I think that's an integral part of understanding what you do in any field. I mean, that's how education is so key, right? Um,
Yes.
but but I'm not immersed, and my that's always been my feeling that he was so, everyone says, ahead of his time. And please feel free to
Yes.
correct me, but from what I've understand, that's why he's so revered, and why I think his
Hmm.
work has lasted in whatever form so long. And so
Right.
many of us here today, including, are still talking about it. It's still relevant. So I don't think he'd be
Mm.
horrified, but I don't know how you feel about it beyond, that.
I'm gonna read Joel's comments here. I think
Mm.
he would roll over in his grave if he saw some of the things
There you go.
happening with his name attached to it. Well, that's true
Fair.
too,
And
right? I
that's
mean, people
fair.
throw their name and attach it to everything, and it's like you have to at some point say, that's not Pilates, right?
100%.
I wonder if
100%.
he would allow folks to change his style. Yeah, true, and I
Mm,
agree. Now, the guy in that picture, Ajamu, my kettlebell
mm.
friend, has said when he was teaching his courses, there are exercises with the kettlebell and there are kettlebell exercises, and
Well
there's a
put.
difference.
Well put.
And I think the same can be said of Pilates. There's exercises on the reformer, but they're not necessarily Pilates exercises. And then there's Pilates exercises, right? Like I can do squats and push-ups and all these kinds of stuff. You know, I can do deadlifts with one foot on the base and whatever, and then that's not a Pilates exercise, but I'm using a reformer. Do I call that Pilates?
Exactly. Not to
Right? Like,
mention, I mean, the list of where he also drew information from is endless. That man,
yes.
speaking of education, I mean, it's incredible, right? I mean, that
Hmm.
breadth of movement that I think he also, with, all respect, drew influence from and drew
Yes.
inspiration from. So I also think it's like, well, can you say it's only Pilates if it also exists outside of it, right? So
Right.
it's yeah, I think personally it's a crazy academic question. I don't know if there is a
Yes.
perfect answer to it, but
Well,
what were you gonna
I
say?
like
Sorry.
what Joel's putting here. Like there are some
Yeah.
things to call Pilates, and there is zero understanding of the connection when moving. And maybe that's fundamentally part of it too, is that there's a sense
Yeah.
of understanding where an exercise comes from in
Yeah,
Pilates that if I'm just moving without intention, is that Pilates? Like even then, if you want to go there, I can take a Pilates exercise and do it with no mindfulness whatsoever. Then is that Pilates?
100%. And I think as well, and this is one thing we've talked a lot about, the inside scoop at Marathon,
Mm-hmm.
in instructor trainer meetings is programming and how it's taught in the course and how we see that reflected both online. Not that we're on here, policing anything, but most
Mm-hmm.
of us have an online presence. How do you see programming play out? And that's just it. It's not one exercise. And I think most instructors, whether classical or contemporary, who've been through a comprehensive program, and however that maybe not even called comprehensive, but
Right.
a complete repertoire. You've
Right.
looked at the apparatus, you've looked at the exercises, they fit together. It wasn't,
Yes.
that's the other thing. It's not necessarily, and again, please jump in, those classical instructors, if I'm totally mistaken, but picking it apart and just saying, well, it's one exercise, can you even tease all that out really?
Right.
Was it meant to be? Was it designed that way? So,
Right. That's
you
exactly it.
know,
And I think it might even be refreshing from people who have a stereotypical idea of what comprehensive teachers are, of contemporary teachers are versus what classical teachers are, to say that
yeah,
because then the system is a system, and that's when I got into real like teaching with Chris Robinson. That's one thing to say.
I
Like
bet.
the exercises are a system, so the exercise on the mat is connected to the exercise on the reformer, and if that doesn't work for the person, you could take them to the ladder barrel and do the same tree that they were just doing on the reformer because the
100%.
exercises are part of a system as opposed to picking them apart. Because I know from a classical perspective, the perspective on contemporary is
Yeah.
you're just haphazardly choosing exercises, which is what you're saying. And no, it's more in depth, there's more programming than that, right?
Well,
So
I hope there is. Again, this isn't
mhm,
meant to be a judgment in either direction. And I think everyone teaches differently, everyone programs differently. How you get inspired is so unique and is so individual.
mhm,
But no, the way, I was taught to teach the course, it's not my course by any means. There's exercise, Moira Marathew, who's on here, and I'll connect you to Moira if you're ever interested. You really want to have
mhm.
this conversation that
Sure,
you need to talk
absolutely.
to.
Yeah.
She's a ball of energy to this day. She's amazing. But, no, there's real programming, components to the course and talking about
Yes.
that and how session one looks compared to session five and different
Mhm.
postures and different. So, no, there should be, not should, that's the wrong word to use, but I think for a lot of instructors that I know, regardless of how your tons of great comments, oh gosh, did we open a really big can of worms here?
This is a great conversation. I like opening cans of worms, so we
I
can we
don't
can
see any
safely
caps
navigate
locks, so no one's
it.
yelling yet. But
I know.
I think we're
Right.
good. But
Yeah.
that's just it, right? I do think it's not just, even as a contemporary instructor, I don't just go into a class and go, oh well, we're gonna okay, and then stand up. There's thought put into it,
Hmm.
and there
Hmm.
definitely are. We have our exercise manuals with the exercise manuals, our manuals with maybe not the
Yes.
original order of exercises, but there certainly is an order,
Yes.
and it isn't. No, it isn't totally haphazard, which I can understand why it often comes across that way
Hmm.
completely. But
Right.
I hope that there is some deference and some, thought to where not only are, the mods where we've taken and maybe taken his exercise and say, okay, before we go into a full spinal extension, can we bring that down a
Yes.
little bit? That
Right.
kind of thing, but ultimately there is an exercise there that you're supposed to be progressing toward.
Two.
And that
Yes.
is the original exercise. So
Right. And I
yeah, anyway.
love that. It's no, that's a great point. Because when I was doing my peak cert and
Yeah.
we were doing some exercises, it wasn't until I did my this authentic thing with Chris Robinson that we did an
Mhm.
exercise, and then I was like, I connected the dots to what I learned at peak and connected the dots to what I learned at East to West. It was like all of
Yeah.
these things were setting up for this exercise.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
made sense. So that's why wherever you land, you have to invest
Yes.
in this. You can't pull this off in a weekend.
No, that's, I think, the biggest take home. If I was like, this is what I'd write in the comment box,
Yes.
you said it. That's it. Again,
Right.
it's a lifelong process that, it's funny when we were chatting before this and just like we were catching up, guys, and sending pictures back and forth. And I think that's what I said when you were like, what would you say to your Pilates peeps? And I was like, I don't know. Like, honestly, I'm
Mhm.
tired. I'm out of pivots. But no more friends memes with the
Right.
stairs and the couch. No, but I am really hopeful about coming back to something familiar and something maybe
Yes.
that looks like it did or maybe not. Like you said, this is a great time to maybe shift and evolve. But this is what gets me excited too, is just these
Hmm.
friendly conversations about this is what you come back to, and it doesn't end. All my
Right.
students were like, I can't wait for my exam, it's over. And it's like, no, it's just beginning.
Ooh,
It's
whoa, whoa.
just beginning.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely. Like
exciting.
that's the saying that like I got like when I finished my thing, it's like, okay, well now you've got your driver's license. You are licensed to safely operate a vehicle. Full stop. You're not Lewis Hamilton. You cannot race. You're not super qualified to do anything. You can safely operate the equipment.
And then you have races like this past weekend where everything goes off the rails,
Yes.
and you've got to figure out with the body in front of you,
Hmm.
whether it's classical, temperate, what are you going to pull from, how do you program, and how do you, how do
What
you put the
is in your
pieces together?
toolbox?
Beautiful. And whether it's TRX or whether, like, again, I think education, like I said, is important. I don't think anything you can pull from is wrong. I mean, if it
Hmm.
works and it gets them to their goals,
Right. The
yeah,
other piece to that I've said, like if you were to look back on this and someone was to go through my old ones and then, start to spam me on anything, they would hear me say that I've always come back to educating the people. So if I'm leaving Pilates land,
yeah,
let them know that we're leaving Pilates land. So like this is a yoga
yeah,
exercise now, and now we're coming back to our Pilates, whatever it is. So they're like people are being educated along the way because it's
100%.
the thing that really has irked me over the years is like teaching a Pilates class and then I have to cover for somebody else's class. I walk in to watch it the week before, whatever they're teaching, and then it's all yoga. And then the people walk out like, oh, that was
Mm,
such a good Pilates class. It's like, you did 3 Pilates exercises in 45 minutes,
maybe.
and the rest of
Yeah.
it was yoga. And people think that it was Pilates.
Yeah.
Movement's movement. I love movement, and I want people to move. You're off your couch, hooray. But
You win. Yeah. You win. Done.
you're winning for that. But then educate people so that they know when they're leaving Pilates land, they're going somewhere else, right? So I think that
And
that for me is a key piece in it.
100%, if I could take one step further, then you're also educating them to about how to make their own choices too,
Yes.
right? And I think that again, it's empowering people and empowering them in
Thank
their
you.
own bodies. And I think that is just, yeah, that's it, right? And it's not about, again, languaging. And at the end of the day, I'm not really upset if someone says Pilates isn't for me. I mean, that's fine, but it's leaving Pilates land. Exactly. Well put. Agreed. But then they should have that choice, and they should know the choices they have available to them and what they're making. And I think that's it. It's empowering people. And again, education is key. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I have one more thing on
See, we're
the.
not so different, everyone.
I
It's
know,
okay.
right?
Right?
I maybe when people come from a place, this is like the segue into the race relationships piece right here. When people come from a place
Is your wife
of,
still here?
yes, yes, my wife is from Utah, everybody. So, um,
Uh,
when people come from a place of celebrating differences and seeking
yeah.
similarities instead of highlighting differences and trying to create a divide with those differences, then you can
Yeah.
have conversations like this,
100%. And respectful
whatever topic it is.
conversations.
Yes. Yes, but you've been doing, yes.
Pilates isn't for me,
Um,
but you're doing it. Yeah, I hear that.
yes. Yeah. So,
There's so many good comments. Thank you, everybody. This is
I know,
lovely.
right?
This is such a treat. Thank you so much for having me. I don't think I've said that yet. I'm so sorry. That's so impolite, but this is lovely.
Well, I was feeling like you were so impolite until you mentioned that right now. So,
Thank God.
nah,
Thank God I said something.
we're good. Martin Fills, when he was on, actually, we've had some guys, brilliant, super brilliant. One of his students, and I've said this story before too. He's trained contemporary, like you know him from he's in Marathon Land and
Just up
all
the
these things.
street. Yep. Yep.
Yes, he has a student, an old friend of mine from high school actually, who has been taking his classes forever. I was teaching one of my classes. My classes are I'm teaching people just classical Pilates, going through the repertoire and just like
Yep.
bring all those things. And she went through the class and she absolutely killed it. She did well in all the classes and she was very comfortable with the exercises, knew what I was saying, knew where it was, knew where to be in space and all these things.
Yeah.
And it made me think I was so impressed with Martin Phil's teaching ability that being a contemporary guy, he could put on his classical hat and say, "We're going to do the classical repertoire today." Bang,
Yeah.
bang, 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 bang. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna bring in a squishy ball and a band, and
Yeah.
we're gonna do this, and we can throw in all these modifications and stuff, and get you moving the way your body needs to. The versatility of him as someone who has committed his life to learning
Yeah. As an
is
instructor.
as an
Yeah.
instructor is what impressed me.
100%.
So you can call himself a contemporary teacher all day. If you call yourself a contemporary teacher and you can teach someone the classical repertoire and they can go into someone else's
Yeah.
purely classical class and kill it,
Yeah.
you, my friend, are an
Doing
amazing
well.
instructor.
And someone else, I'm
Yes.
sorry, your name's hidden, but shout out, good movement is good movement, no matter where you learn it. Exactly.
Yes.
And good instructors are good teaching is an art form a lot of the time, I think, when it's really done well. And you hear those cues and you're just like, oh, please, I need to, and I'll shout out actually at head office because everyone
Yes.
knows the other instructors. I'll be like, that's a Wayne cue. And like, that's,
Yes.
this is from, give credit where credit's due, but I agree
Yes.
completely. And I think that the other thing, goes beyond the specific exercises, whether classical, contemporary, whatever,
Hmm.
BOSU, TRX,
Sure.
is, if you're teaching, it's mindful movement. I like to think that I'm
Thank you.
teaching at the end of the day. I hope on my good days. And I think you're on my good days.
Not the eighth clients of the day kind of day sort of thing.
I don't do those anymore for that
Yeah, no,
exact
right.
reason,
Right.
right? I
Yes.
mean, it's just, I mean, you got to chase what were you saying before? Chasing
Jason
the,
Paper.
but no, I'm not someone, oh, did my headphones just die? I'm not someone who can do the 8 hours and feel like my last client gets the same me as my first. And that's again, you learn, I think, as you go on what your limits are. And if you can, great, take a 3-day weekend and enjoy it.
Right.
But we're teaching mindful movement.
Mhm.
If you're teaching someone how to move their body through space, and again, that proprioception, of course that carries over. Of course, how could it not?
Absolutely.
And that's so cool to see, and that's someone who's comfortable doing both. And
Right.
again, should feel welcome in both types of classes.
Inclusion.
She's found some good instructors. Yeah, inclusion
Hmm.
again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, period.
The
Yeah.
can you define mindful movement?
Can I
This,
define mindful
yeah.
movement? Where's my
I give
manual?
people.
Where's
I
my
know.
notes?
I usually give
Um,
people like a heads up if I'm going to throw like a term like that.
no, that's fine.
I'm figured
I mean,
you're smart. You can figure it out.
that's very generous. Let's not go into anatomy quizzes today. It's been a while since I've taught an anatomy course, but mindful movement to me, and this is to me, I won't say this, I don't want to put this on anyone else, in case, they disagree with it at the head office, etc. To me,
Right.
mindful, right? Just to be careful here. There are
Yes.
students watching. But for me, mindful movement, let me take just a sec. You know what? It's most simple. It's not a great definition because it's using the same word, but
No.
it's just moving mindfully. It's
Yeah.
moving your body through space thoughtfully and with intention.
Mhm.
And that's unique to everybody.
Yep.
Um, is that okay? Is that too
That's
simple
great.
for you?
That's no. That's fantastic. I mean,
You
why would
know,
we complicate it? Like that is it's being present with your movement, right? Like
100%,
it's
100%.
it's doing something and just being present even within your body today,
I was just going to say, never has
right?
that been more relevant. And I think you, in your preamble, I'm sorry, you were talking about your podcast, right? Coming up
Hmm.
this week, to cycle way back to,
Yes.
again, I think being present and how to show up for your clients, and how to show up for yourself,
How to
because you
show up for
can't do
yourself,
one without your other. I truly believe. I mean,
right? I have to catch myself on that because I have so many clients that I really love working with, and
yeah,
this is the personal trainer in me. I see people's potential and I want to just like throw them forward to where they can be, mind,
yeah,
body, everything. But what happens is the danger of that is that you don't respect where they are today
yeah.
sometimes, right?
Hard. It's a hard
And
thing to navigate.
it's a hard thing to navigate because they could have been amazing on Monday and you want to pick up where you left off on Monday and then they had the worst Tuesday ever and then they've regressed. They haven't really regressed, but like there's that sense of not respecting where they are today, even though they were past that on Monday. So where are they now? And
Yeah,
always coming to every client every day is in a new way. And that's a mindfulness for me. What do you need today? I almost start almost every session with that right now. What do you need today? How does your body
Yeah.
feel right now? As opposed to, okay, we did 205 pounds in your bench press. We're starting there, and
Yeah.
like, no, like,
It's two questions, right? I always think it's two questions for your clients when they walk in. If we go, especially as Canadians, sorry for all the lovely Americans in Switzerland and everyone else here, but I definitely know in Canada, and I think you're all polite enough to do this too. It's, hi, how are you? And we all go, fine, fine, fine.
fine.
I'm taking off my shoes.
Yes.
And then you go and you're in the space and you go, how's your body feeling today? Because
Yes.
that's actually the answer you're looking for. And that happened to me
Right.
yesterday. I had a client who she's actually one of my bosses up at Merrithew, and I'm so grateful she's asked to, work with me via Zoom right now. It's always she's got access to the entire IT roster. I mean, like she could work with anybody. It's such a compliment. But
Yes.
and she just had a bit of a rough day at work, and I could see it to the point where I almost said, do we need to pause? Do we need to maybe call it for today? Is this just not, you could just see it and it just wasn't. And, I think sometimes that happens. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, total gear shift as me as an instructor, we finished the session completely differently than I thought we would when we
Yes.
started.
Right.
And not to use this word because I said I wouldn't use it, but you got to pivot and you got to
I
know
wrote down
when to.
pivot. Let's not be afraid of the word pivot. We still got to
No,
pivot.
no, no, no. Maybe no
Let's
more
pivot.
memes, but you have to. So
Yes.
I come to pivot as a dancer. You must come to it as basketball player, correct?
Football.
Football. Okay,
Yeah.
but same pivot. Athletes,
Right.
absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
It's a term we're used to using. So,
Right.
and you have to, as an instructor, you have to, and it's not about you. You got to take ego out of the equation.
Right.
You might have programmed your papers and you're so good to go and you're
Brilliantly.
so excited. The
Yes.
transitions were so good. And it's not about you.
Guilty.
It's not about you. How's your body today is universal. Yeah, thank you, Meryl.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't know if this is another question to put out to the Instagram community, but and I think body is, speaking of, gendered language and language being and so important right now, and it's Pride Month and but I hope body is a word and a way to approach that question that is again universal truly and also inclusive again. I hope, because I think again, how do you come at it any other way? But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I think, a high level skill for us as teachers to be really sensitive to
Oh yeah.
where people are and to be not afraid to use silence, not afraid to just sit with someone, not afraid to read the
Breathe
situation
with
and
someone.
say, to breathe with someone. And then there's times when they just want to move. They don't want to talk about
Yes.
it. They don't need silence. They actually came because they want to get away from it in the sense of just being present in the workout. And it's as beneficial to just move through the exercises and fly through it and get them to
And
sweat
that's
and
where
just
the
get them to think
mindful
about,
movement comes
yeah,
in, right? Because
right,
I don't know how
right.
many, I love teaching, funny enough, male clients. I actually have a real soft spot and have collected, I hope, a few over the years that'll stick around post-pandemic too, different ages. And I actually really enjoy, I always joke it's because I grew up with a lot of male friends and I'm comfortable hanging with the guys, I guess, like if you want to
Yes.
put it that way. But I love the variety. For me, it's a different challenge as an instructor. So it keeps me on my toes, keeps me coming back to the material, the exercises, the order, etc. But also,
Yes.
again, making it in a way that's going to be, like you said, accessible, and they don't have to be dancers, and it's not flowery language and your pelvic floor blooms, like whatever. No,
What?
like no, right? Like no,
Right.
but I think is so often a stereotype, and you do hear
Right.
some pretty wild stuff out there. I've said it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say that to my
awesome.
65-year-old father who's on the reformer. She's like, what is
Like,
a medical
nothing's,
professional? Like what?
yeah, exactly. Nothing proven over
No.
here. Sorry. Yes.
My glutes? My glutes? You want?
Yeah.
Um, but um, but again, how do you make it accessible, and how do you, that mindful piece? It's always those male clients to me that say, without a doubt, they're like, I love because I come here and I don't have to think about anything else. I just
Yeah.
focus on what I'm doing. And if you can do
Yes.
that for your client, how they need to approach it that day, yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah.
100%.
That is the gift there. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yes. How did you find Pilates?
I was a dancer.
Oh, you don't say.
Was I doing my jazz hands?
Yes, please. Jazz hands.
That's your answer was the same ones I mentioned to like a long-standing group of like a reformer class, and it was all regulars on Saturday morning. I miss them dearly. I don't think anyone's on any of those ladies follow me on here, but they're just the greatest group. And I mentioned, I was like, well, you know, like back in the day, I used to dance. And they're like, you don't say. But I come from a musical theater background specifically. Like I grew up hardcore musical theater, intensive every summer. I mean, like I started dance at 4, singing at 6, all three, you know, or trying on my good days to do all three at like 8, you know, like that was my jam. I thought that's where I would end up. And Pilates was the conditioning piece in the dance puzzle. It turned out one of my instructors went to head office here in Toronto, right? Because I grew up in Hamilton, so it was close by. She went and did her Pilates certification, and I'm sure we were just her guinea pigs. You know, after our jazz and tap and whatever on Friday, we just did an hour of Pilates. And little did I know we were doing like advanced teasers and stuff, and that was just my regular. I thought that was every Pilates class, right? Because again, challenging the bodies in front. We were all like 14, 16-year-old dancers, sure. Like
bendy and strong.
Yeah, if you're gonna teach that repertoire and practice it, why not? Little did I know she ended up becoming an instructor trainer, and so you know she was great. I got really lucky and started with someone I think who really loved it, knew her stuff, and could push us in a way that was smart and creative and applicable to what we were doing and what our bodies needed. And that's where I started. So it kept me sane in university. I went to Nova Scotia and I did a Pilates class. Just again, I happened to find someone I really loved. And it was funny. She was the first person who ever put the bug in my ear, was like, did you ever think about teaching? And to this day, I'm like, I don't know what she saw. I didn't ask anything about it, but it was just that cut out. Sorry. It was just my happy place. And, got it. Okay. And yeah, so eventually I was supposed to I did a semester of a master's program in Toronto, through a joint program at York and York and Ryerson. And so that was I got to Toronto the summer before. I was like, okay, I'll do my, you know, maybe it's extra grocery money. I'll do my Mat and Reformer course. Like, sure, it's time. And I quit my master's program a semester later, because the teaching opportunities were just, I fell in love. I'd never felt more at home. Like literally I lived at the studio, right? When you're doing your apprentice hours, like you live there, but I felt that's how I came to it as a young high school student, and then how it stuck with me all the way through. And ta-da, today.
There you are.
That's it.
Very cool. How did the family feel about you dropping out of your master's program too?
Oh, fine. They're all overly educated anyway. They're fine. They're fine. I come from a very science-based family. Sorry, I'm just going to plug my phone in. Sorry, vertigo. So I was a theater major and a sociology major as my double. So they were very excited when I took on sociology double major. To them, that was more familiar, at least. And they're like, oh, great, she'll be fine. She's sociology, because that's really practical. So they were totally fine. I was actually sitting, this is my other plug for, you know, finding what works for you. And if it's Pilates, great. If it's not, that's fine too. Being able to, oh my God, I'm going to say it, pivot and make a change, as scary as it can be, for me was the best thing I ever did. I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table sobbing because I was trying to write one of my papers that first semester of grad school, and I was miserable. It felt like I was wasting my time. I didn't have anything, like the profs just did not, I just ended up, I think, in the wrong particular class. I wasn't there anymore. It was not where I was meant to be. And so my mom was in the kitchen with me and she said, stop.
There you go.
What do you want to do? And I'd just gotten an offer to teach pretty much full time. So I had something to go to. I always said, I don't know if hadn't had, you know, an offer or somewhere to go.
Right.
I would have had the courage to walk away and because I felt like such a quitter. I really did. I felt like such a quitter. Oh, huge. And it took years, honestly, of reminding myself and other people very kindly, and my partner reminding me that you didn't quit, you made a choice. And I think, you know, whether it's you're making choices to how you approach your day or your clients or whatever, I mean, you know, it all cycles back to the same thing, but having that courage to make the choice, highly recommend it. Like you were saying to your son, you know, find something you love, and we're so lucky. So.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I love those, like, as a parent, like you hear those parenting stories, you're like, that's one for the good guy. It's like, well, we can give our kids room to make choices and empower them to make choices instead of leaving them with the idea that we need to please them, leaving them with the idea that we need to get their approval, that translates to the workplace, that translates to every other part of life, and then
Everything,
we just live our lives
everything.
just being people
Making
pleasers.
choices. Yeah, and
Right.
not making choices. I think it's that lack of choice, that lack of ownership. And same thing with, you know, it really does come back to, oh, hey, Carla just joined. Someone else we should have on, my boss. But one of the original like ITs up at Merrithew, actually. She'd be fascinating to
Nice.
talk to. I'm sure she's got some stories.
Yes,
But
I'll
sorry.
chase you down after.
Um,
Yes. Yep.
but you know, that lack of choices, and I think right back
Yes.
to exercises in class, right? And I think to me, modification, at least in the contemporary world, even gets to be a dirty word where it's like, well, I don't want to do the mod, I want to do the real exercise. And it's like, well, who said it's not the real exercise? If it helped you
Right.
achieve the exercise to the best of your ability. And I
Yes.
always ask, you know, I love asking a client after, and they're like, well, didn't that feel great once we're done? And they're like, yeah, oh my God, that felt so much better sitting up a bit higher on a
Mhm.
prop or doing it on the barrel as opposed to a box or whatever it
Yes.
may be. But giving someone the choice for themselves, and that, like you
Right.
said, that empowering them to make those choices. 100%. 100%.
100%. Alex, I just looked up and it's 10:55.
I'm sorry. We do talk for a living, so
We
I
talked
can
for a living.
talk.
That
Sorry.
yeah, no, I'm kind of just I feel like I'm just like leaning into that last comment about empowering because we give people permission to make those choices. Like, it really does come back to us in that small corner of the world where we are an authority in their life
That
to
small
give them
Pilates room.
permission. That small Pilates room is
Yeah,
just a microcosm of other parts of their world where we need to give them
huge.
some permission and allow them to make that decision. And it's not, you're not losing because you can't do an exercise in this way. This modification, regression, progression, adjustment, whatever word you want to use, we give them
Tension.
permission. Yeah,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
those
It's a
things. So
safe
like,
space. Again, so inclusivity, you got to feel safe walking into the room, safe with your instructor, and
yes,
then you're empowered to make those choices for yourself. And again, it's just Pilates, but that to me is a pretty lovely sentiment and much larger than just, you know, the studio. It carries, I hope it carries through elsewhere. Yeah.
absolutely. I think it may have been Joel when we were talking about that, or even John Claude. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's just Pilates on one level, but then we see how
Totally.
it's how you do Pilates is how you do life at the same time. So it's not just Pilates. Like, you know what I mean?
Right?
Like,
I know. I
it's
know.
both at the same time. It
My
really is
part
both at the same time.
totally my partner all the time, especially when, you know, I think it's been an interesting year for everybody. And, you know, hi to everyone here saying thank you for joining, and I hope you're doing okay. But, you know, it's also been crazy within the industry. I mean, especially on social media, sort of watching various things play out, and I'm sure everyone
Yeah,
knows what I'm alluding to. Sorry, no, joking, all joking aside, it's been, I think, in a lot of ways really heartbreaking to watch, but also I hope really there's good that comes out of, you know, all of it. And I think, but again, it's the matter of, yeah, you have to, I don't know, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, these conversations have to happen, and it is Pilates, but it's amazing how it really does mirror what else is going on. And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
It's great chatting with you today. So
You
glad we
too.
did
Thank
this.
you again. Oh no, thank you so
Yeah.
much. I was so nervous. I was so nervous before coming on.
Really?
Yeah, I think mostly just because I was like, I've forgotten how to have a normal conversation. Thank you,
Right.
Corinne.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we live close enough that we could do
we
this in real life
do.
next time.
Oh, we'll bring our coffees again. How do you take your coffee? I always like to ask, and I
That's
don't ask.
straight black.
Of course you do. Of course, none of that cream and milk and
No. I was gonna make a
okay.
joke about 14%, but we'll leave that alone.
I would too.
Yeah.
We can make those jokes in
Yes.
person, Martin. We don't have
That's
to.
true.
Yeah. No.
Thank you to everyone who joined us
Oh,
today. Pippa, thanks for joining us. Meryl and Joel, I really appreciate you guys. Blaze
hi
Flies,
Pippa.
Marianne, thank you. And Ferbert, that's my brother. He's not a Pilates guy, so that's why I loved his questions because they weren't coming from that jaded Pilates place. So they were actually just authentic questions. So
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank
yes.
you specifically to the family members asking questions. But oh yeah, thank you everyone. I look forward to actually getting the chance to read through them. Hi, Pippa. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's the funny
Ugh.
thing? Like the replay doesn't have the comments in it.
Oh no. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm
true
glad we did
story.
read a couple. Oh good.
Hmm.
Okay.
I every now and then I'll sit there and just like screenshot and just take pictures of them because they're such
Yeah.
good pictures. So that's exactly
Oh
what I'm doing right
yeah.
now.
Especially for some of those definitions when we were talking about things. Please share, not so it's just me mumbling through a definition.
Not too funny. There. All right. I think I got most of them.
Love it. Oh, that's great.
Yes. So
Okay.
good. All right. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you
Thank you
later.
so much. Talk soon. Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Yes. Bye, everyone.